Welcome to another edition of our program. Today we'll be talking labor and with no other than the Honorable Simona Brooms, Minister within the Ministry of Social Protection. Minister, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have us sit down and talk with you. Basically, we want to know what's been going on. The government is almost 6 months in office. Today we're talking labor. Tell us, first of all, how do you think you did? Or you're doing so far?
Well, I think that Labour, the country at large, nobody could fault this new government. I mean, it's not a decent or a nice thing that we inherited. But I think that so far, I know that the workers, employees, most of them are pleased and they're more hopeful now. So I think in terms of the labor aspect, I think that not only me, but as a government, because I represent a government, we have spotted and we did not bury our heads in the sand to deal with the situation, but we confront the situation. I think that we dealt with it in an excellent manner.
Do you think that employees, workers they now have a better feeling that, listen, that there is an administration and there is a department that really cares for us? Do you think that what you've been doing has really given them that sort of feeling, that sort of impression?
Well, definitely yes. Workers throughout the country, they're happy in 6 months. I did touch with the sugar workers. I did touch with bauxite workers, miners in the timber, commercial, right across. And workers are more hopeful, they're more happy, they're communicating. The education that we've started, it's working well. Workers now understand their rights. And not only workers, it really worked well for the employers also in terms of the training that was done. Lots of workers benefit, lots of employers also benefit from the new government approach because they had the opportunity to correct and in terms of changes, and now we have companies and employers coming forward and want to do more for the next year, and we are collaborating in terms of how could we motivate the workers and together how we will change as it relates to the labor aspect out there. So Guyanese can really look forward as long as I'm here. I am committed to serving the people of Guyana, and I will do so without fear and favor.
I know you did quite a lot of inspections since you took office.
Yes, definitely.
Tell me a little bit about the reception out there, your interaction with the employers and the employees.
Well, I think the employers, it's just one of the employees in terms of the inspection, but generally, even when the bigger companies, not only local businesses, even when they're at fault, it was not in a sense where we had confrontation or anything. I mean, as shameful as it was, they did allow us to conduct our inspection. I think it was just one major company I might not go in, and that was in the mining, that we were really dissatisfied with the treatment coming out from a company at that level. But apart from that, be it Rusal, the Russians, the Chinese, the locals, we have conducted our inspections well. We call for corrections, and I must say that there have companies that have been corrected, and some immediately. I mean, they've really been impressing me so far. You will find those that will not, but you cannot, have one person to just tarnish the whole pack. So even the employers, they have benefited. Coming out from one of the presentation and training and negotiation that we had with a major company, when they stepped forward to make their payments, they did overpay by $1.8 million, in which immediately when I recognized that, called them in and to correct that. So I mentioned that because my role as the minister is to look at employer and employee. So the employer too also is pleased because not only we will check to see that the worker received the right amount, but also that the company pay the right amount. Every company that I have inspected, however, workers have benefited They were companies that were underpaying workers, and even if it was by a dollar, it added up. They were a company who was wrongfully deducting money from workers that they had to repay to the workers. There were companies that were not paying the workers their overtime and other benefits and had to do that. Millions of dollars workers have benefited from because coming out from the inspection, the correction and what we've noticed, workers benefited not only financially but the conditions that they were working under. Definitely we had some major shift um, in that aspect. So I think that the inspection, I mean, it was hectic and, with all the challenges, but I think it really served both employees well so far in the country.
How are we dealing specifically with defaulters?
Well, the default is our first approach. We give a period for correction. Some persons had a shorter period. That is depending on the condition and things that were happening in the country. So the first step that we did, and that is not to do with fatality, however, and accidents. Fatalities was definitely charges. There was not a fatality under this new government watch that we did not investigate and charge, and person went before the court and paid fine. We had families being compensated in terms of the negotiation. And so with fatalities and accidents, they're not any, we can't negotiate those. In terms of corrections with the, and payments, those were must. So what they were given an opportunity to really correct, and that was our first approach as government, to have them to correct and better conditions and to educate both employee, and we have been doing that and making some excellent achievements in those areas. So that was the approach generally. One, failure to comply, that is when we had to go before the court. But most of them, like I mentioned, they did comply and start their corrections.
You mentioned training. Tell us a little bit about this training.
Well, every week here at the department, every Wednesday, we have training. We train the persons from various sectors, and also when we go out and conduct the inspections, if there are companies that we notice in terms of what was there, then we advise and we meet out to them and we give training in terms of the IR, industrial relation, and occupational safety and health. We have training right across the board there. It was public that even the Chinese Association did write and asked myself and the team to come forward and to do some training with them. So we did that, and that is really going well, because while ignorance of the law is no excuse, most of the companies did admit they have never had any run-in with labor. They never visit the office. They don't have copies of the laws. They don't have a copy of the act or anything. So you can imagine what was taking place there. So still, as a government, while they have to comply, we are working with them. We are assisting them to get there where they're supposed to be.
What has been your biggest success, if we're to talk about specifically coming out from the inspections?
Well, I think coming out from the inspections, the changes of condition that workers work, I think that is fantastic. And more so, I think that one of the biggest achievements is the amount of money within the 6 months that we have recovered, because we recover those money with negotiations, and we're over $70 million as we speak in terms of workers receiving their money, 1 point something, 8 million cases from since 2011. We managed to negotiate and not going through the court, because the one matter that we got the judgment of $10 million in the court with the tower, the employer did not show up. But all the rest of money that we get, we had good negotiations. We called in the company, all the major company, local businesses, White Cross, and we had some great negotiations. And coming out from that, I think workers really did not have to wait this long period. We've had complaints coming in now and close now. And I think that really brings about an excitement. It motivates the workers to see you call an employer and they come in and say, listen, this is the problem, and the worker leave happy, the employer is happy, and that is what I want. Um, just that everybody could be happy, so we can have a better Guyana in terms of labor and workers' rights. Everybody have a right, and that must be respected.
So I take it that you have a more effective system in dealing with the complaints and the reports.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. We do have that. Um, and just to touch on another area that we have a lot of works going on, the co-op section. Um, what we inherited, there's nothing at all that can say to us which are the co-ops that are functioning, which are not, and the NGOs. So we have inquiry going on throughout the country. In that area, there was just one co-op that was difficult, that we had some challenges with. But apart from that, we have the inquiries going on so that we know how many co-ops we have functioning, what is not functioning, what are the assets of the co-ops out there. And so now government will now put in their policies and so on to really move, and co-ops will be at work. Guyanese could really look forward. The recruitment and manpower section, that it falls within the program 3, falling on the labor. The building is at the Cornhill Street. And what is happening there, now we are encouraging all Guyanese, be it you're a cook, be it you're a waiter, be it you're an engineer, be it you're an accountant, to come into the recruitment and manpower and register. They take you through the process. We have all your information. And the private and public sector, we're negotiating with them to say that in terms of placement, you have to get somebody to work. You can check us out. We give you a list. This is what you want. We give you the list, and we're looking also to deal with unemployment in the country. And at the end of our 5 years, we could give accurate stats because the statistical department is up and functioning. We are expanding all those departments so that you can get real numbers and not just pulling numbers out of the sky like what was happening in Guyana in the past. We ought to have a decent, arrangement, and we're talking about transparency, and the government definitely is holding up and standing up to that.
Have you been able to place anybody of recent, or this is a work in progress?
Well, we have been placing, yes, we have placed persons. We want to place more persons. And now the companies, they're excited because they never, it was well on the plate. And in fact, they never knew that there's a recruitment and manpower section. And lots of Guyanese don't know about it either, so they're not going in to register. So now that the companies, they said they're more happy to know that they could just call and, a section right here, and to have persons, because they said it's challenging, and for some of the foreign companies, they said it will help because they're being accused of not hiring Guyanese persons, but that is not so. But sometimes, how do you get the persons and all that? You put it in a newspaper, the time that it takes, and things like that. So they're excited to work with us in those areas. It will definitely serve them in a more efficient way also.
Minister, if we can shift our focus a little bit, all of the achievements, I'm sure, getting to that point was not as easy as anyone would want to assume. What were some of the major challenges you've had, and maybe you still do?
Well, we got some challenges in terms of persons failure to pay. There was one miner who had some miners in the Port Kaituma area for several months, from since February, and their families were here. Children had to drop out of school and all of that. And the employer refuses to pay, but then seek to get a lawyer to write all kind of ill letters, and some of the persons even will go to the press. And we expect that. I expect that as a minister in the government, it's not everyone like to do what is right. But apart from the challenges, I'm committed. I'm committed. So the challenges, I will use them really to motivate me. So I think that I'm putting that very clear out there to the employers or whoever, that the challenges, I would only use it as a motivation.
Do you think that Do you anticipate
Mhm.
more challenges?
Well, definitely. Once you're here at labor, I mean, if you come by here to spend an hour or 2 hours and you understand what is really happening in the country, I mean, it was a complete neglect from the past government. Guyanese people and workers was really mistreated. I'm surprised to see sometimes. Well, I mean, nothing should surprise one from the PPP because they just say anything. They're not very responsible to talk about workers. I mean, it aches me to come in here with what has been unearthed before us. I think I can say that Guyanese workers was really, really, really neglected, and even the employers, they should have been better educated. They should, you know, what I mean, they should have had a better system that you could have had that mutual respect employer-employee relation.
What can we see in 2016 and thereon in terms of the future of labor relations, maybe an intensification of the work that you're doing in terms of labor inspections, all of that? If we can go down a few areas I want to examine, but what do you have planned? What can we see?
Well, definitely for the new year, the government, we have a full year. The budget is supposed to be out early in the year also. So we have a whole year to work with. And both employees can look forward to we have a more educated workforce. Definitely, we will strive for that because we think that if they're better educated out there, then we could get different results coming out from both employees. So that is one of the areas we hope to have change. Better working conditions for workers is one of the big challenge, and is something that has to be corrected, and workers could look forward to that. The rights of workers is another area that workers' rights has to be respected, and it is something that the workers has now start to indicate they now have a sense of um, their employers having respect for them. So, and generally across the board in terms of the co-ops, recruitment, manpower, I'd love to have more sit down. We'll have a plan, and we're working now on our year-end report to put out there, and so that we will examine right across the board and to see what are some of the major shifts in terms of the success, and in terms of the challenges, what are some of the mechanisms that we have to put in place. You can look forward also to see some amendment in some of the labor laws, the legislations. The fines are too petty in terms of the law to deal with fatalities. You will find harder penalties and so on coming down because of fatality to go before the court with a maximum of just $50,000. I mean, we're talking about the life, and for us to curb that situation, we'll find more local collaboration with the RDCs and the ministries throughout the countries to deal with these situations. And so, for example, in Region 8, where we have the highest level of fatality coming out in the country, the RDC now have a subcommittee of natural resources, which will be trained to work along with us to monitor the occupation safety and health in mining out there. So you'll find more collaboration, and in doing that, it will be more efficient in how we deliver service to the general public. So, and next year, to note our 50th independence, it is a government position that all Guyanese must feel that sense of independence and that pride for this beautiful land of ours.
How are we looking at dealing with these issues, labor-related issues, in the other regions of the country? Are we decentralizing, or are there plans to decentralize the service, or it's going to remain here? Or is there going to be a mechanism at the regional administration of the various regions where persons can go and make complaint instead of coming all the way down?
Well, you'll have an officer, apart from the ministry having inspections and senior officers going into the regions on quarterly basis. you have persons in the region working. And for example, in Berbice, there was one officer there for quite a long time. We look to have two officers there, and in Region 7. So we have officers there that will deal with the matter. In some of the remote areas, the officers that we have stationed in the region will have to service some of those remote areas. And then from the central level, we have better management and supervision over the regions, checking in on the staff, and we have very different seniors officers responsible for certain region. So on a quarterly basis, we have to have reports coming in and examining and re-examining what we are doing out there in the region. And that I think that is the intention of government. We're pushing for local government election, is to put the power in the hands of the local people on ground. To manage labor, for example, from Georgetown, that in a sense is one of the reasons for the mess that we find ourselves in the country. And that is something that we definitely will change.
Do you think that there is a greater need for education on the work that you do for the wider public?
Yes, definitely. There's need. Next year we'll find ads, we'll have more press release. We want to have more radio programs. We start the radio program this year, although the time is so short. So we will do more in terms of education because, like I said, we find that from the kind of work the government has been doing for the past 6 months with workers now being more educated, they of themselves will better understand, that they have responsibilities, because it's not that a worker could just do as they like, when they like, and how they like. Business persons, they invest to create employment, and so they have to know what their roles and their responsibilities. If you have to get to work for 8 o'clock, you have to get to work for 8 o'clock. If you have to work for 8 hours, you have to work for 8 hours, right? And so once both parties know their rights and they're better educated, definitely that is an area that we hope to press on.
Are we going to see capacity building for your own people in order to effectively execute their mandate?
But yes, you will have that before the year is through. Internally, we have a lot of changes. Right now, we're looking at the structure that we inherit. We're looking at those expanding, adding new persons to the structure if needed, so as to improve in how we service the nation, to have a more efficient service coming out. So capacity building definitely is one in terms of the system that we use. We're going to have different softwares linking the information. How do we feed the statistical departments with our information and all of that? So in terms of capacity building, definitely.
Minister, on a personal note, where do you see our employer-employee relation and overall the working condition of the workforce of Guyana, let us say by 2020?
Well, 2020, with what the government mandate and the president is very clear on all Guyans having a good life. I think that workers, employers, and employees in 2020 will see the kind of workforce and the labor market and the kind of labor environment that we can have countries in the Caribbean looking at us in terms of some aspect, in terms of best practices. I know one will say it's very ambitious, but I must say to you, that is how I feel, and that is where my heart beats, and that is what I'm committed to doing.
And personally, even more personally now, with all that you would have done since you came in the office, how much of an impact do you think you made on the workforce and with regard to labor relations in Guyana?
I don't think you can describe my work as an impact. I think we had a complete shift. We had a complete shift in this country in that regards. So, and the works is out there, and the public judge it for themselves. And I know that this government, we have made Guyanese proud in the labor department here. We have had a shift in that.
Minister, thank you. And I
Yes.
look forward to a better working relationship with you
Definitely.
and that of your staff in the coming year.
Definitely.
Thank you. This has been a discussion with the Honorable Simona Brooms, and we were talking about labor and labor relations in Guyana. Thank you for watching.